Elizabeth sat on the edge of her modest yet cozy balcony, overlooking the city skyline. The late afternoon sun painted her small but beloved apartment in golden hues. A steaming cup of tea sat beside her journal, and the soft hum of distant traffic was the only company she needed. She had come a long way from the woman she used to be, and this quiet moment was one of many she never took for granted. It hadn't always been this way. 18 years of her life had been spent in a sprawling suburban house that looked perfect from the outside but felt like a cage within. She had married young, believing in the fairy tale she'd been sold: love, partnership, and a happy ever after. What she got instead was a man, Robert, who viewed love as an entitlement, partnership as a convenience, and her dreams as a threat. The memory of their last fight still lingered, though now it felt more like a distant storm than a hurricane threatening her sanity.
You're overreacting. As usual, all I'm saying is that maybe you should stop wasting money on your little hobbies and focus on the house.
Robert had snapped, standing in the grand kitchen they'd renovated together but rarely used.
My hobbies?
Elizabeth's voice had trembled with frustration.
Do you mean my writing? My art? The things that actually make me happy?
Happy? You're never happy. No one could make you happy.
The words stung, but they also woke something inside her.
You're right, Robert.
She had said with a calmness that surprised even herself.
No one can make me happy. But I'll tell you this, I'm done letting you make me miserable.
That was 3 years ago. The divorce papers had been signed, the house sold, and Elizabeth had walked away with less than she'd thought she'd deserve, but more than she'd imagined she needed. What she left behind was far heavier than any material possession: the sleepless nights, the constant criticism, and the draining dance of trying to please a man who never saw her worth. Now, Elizabeth sat with a serene smile, replaying the words her lawyer had said during the proceedings.
You're one of the lucky ones, you know. Some people never get out.
Her best friend, Angela, was quick to agree. They'd spent countless nights on Elizabeth's balcony, wine glasses in hand, dissecting life.
Do you ever miss him?
Angela had asked one evening, though the answer was obvious. Elizabeth had chuckled.
Do you miss food poisoning?
The truth was, she had gained more than she'd lost. She had gained herself. It wasn't an overnight transformation. The first few months post-divorce were riddled with doubt and loneliness. There were moments when she questioned if she'd made the right choice, when the silence of her new apartment felt deafening, and when the whispers of old friends, frenemies, really reached her ears. She's too old to start over, they'd say. What a shame to lose all of that just because she couldn't keep him happy. But Elizabeth knew better. Every cutting remark, every pitying glance was a reminder of the freedom she now had. She no longer needed to compromise her values or shrink herself to fit someone else's expectations. She thought of Robert often, not with bitterness but with gratitude. His indifference had been her greatest teacher. His cheating had been her greatest gift. His absence was her greatest blessing. One day, during a rare reunion with her college friends, the conversation turned to dating.
Are you seeing anyone these days?
One of them, Monica, asked, curiosity gleaming in her eyes. Elizabeth sipped her coffee and smiled.
Nope. And honestly, I'm not interested.
But don't you ever get lonely?
Lonely? Not anymore. For a long time, I thought being alone meant being lonely. But I've learned that it's better to be alone than to be with someone who makes you feel unseen.
Another friend, Margaret, leaned in.
But don't you want someone to share your life with?
I do share my life with myself. And honestly, I'm good company.
But what about love?
Love? Love isn't about filling someone else's emptiness or letting someone take over your life. It's about finding someone who adds to the joy you already have. And if I don't find that, then I'll just keep adding joy on my own.
She had tried dating in the early years after the divorce. Dinners, walks in the park, the occasional coffee date. But over time, she noticed a pattern. Men our age don't want equals, they want a nurse with a purse. Her older friend Gloria had once said. Elizabeth had laughed then, thinking Gloria was just being cynical. But after a series of disappointing encounters, men who wanted her to be their caretaker, their cheerleader, their savior, she realized the truth in those words. One man had the audacity to tell her,
"You'd be perfect if you just loosen up a bit. Let me take the lead."
Elizabeth had smiled politely and replied,
I didn't leave a bad marriage to settle for a mediocre boyfriend.
She never saw him again, and she didn't miss him one bit. 6 years ago, she stopped dating altogether. It wasn't a dramatic decision, there was no heartbreak or epiphany. One day, she simply looked at herself in the mirror and said,
You are enough.
And she was. Elizabeth had built a life she loved. She wrote every day, pouring her thoughts into essays that resonated with women who had been in her shoes. She volunteered at a local shelter, finding fulfillment in helping others rebuild their lives. She traveled when she could, exploring places she'd once only dreamed of. Most importantly, she had learned to savor the simple joys, a quiet morning with her tea, a good book on a rainy afternoon, the laughter of friends who truly cared. One evening, as she sat journaling on her balcony, she wrote the words that had become her mantra.
Freedom is not the absence of commitment, it is the presence of choice. And I choose me.
The city lights twinkled below, and Elizabeth felt nothing but peace. She had given up a big, beautiful, unhappy house, but she had gained something far more valuable, herself. And that, she thought, was worth everything.